Guess what? We're doing live, and I'm fixing my microphone so I'm not too loud. But we're doing live. How you guys doing? And what the hell do we have to? I know there've been some great things this week. What do we have to tell everybody, David?
We've got a lot.
Because you reported something that went super duper crazy, wacky, viral, and I think you need to share this with our.
Let's just get right into it. So Donald Trump's approval ratings at 37%. His political standings in the toilet because of the election the other night. So
a golden toilet? Sorry.
Yeah. Republicans in Congress are already freaked out about what the midterms are going to look like. There has been a rumor over the last several days that has swept across members of Congress on the GOP side about what's in the Epstein files. And to be clear, I want to be perfectly clear to everybody. I have not been part of these conversations. I have not had a direct conversation with the lawmaker or lawmakers who reportedly had the conversations with back channel feed people they know at the Department of Justice of FBI. But I've heard about what they have said to other lawmakers. And essentially what they have been told through back channels from the FBI and Department of Justice is that what is in the Epstein files about Donald Trump is bad and that it's far worse than what has been publicly stated. And what is
that was the key part, David, because, yeah, go ahead.
And I just say what's been publicly stated so far is that Michael Wolff, investigative journalist who wrote a book on Donald Trump, he interviewed Jeffrey Epstein several times. Michael Wolff has said on several different platforms and organizations that Jeffrey Epstein showed him lewd photos of Donald Trump, where Donald Trump was sitting on, or had, teenage girls that were sitting on his lap, and there was a stain on his pants. Okay, embarrassing, humiliating. Was Donald Trump maybe between marriages? Could it be chalked off as, oh, that's just, whatever? Maybe. But if lawmakers in Congress are now being led to believe, as some of them are, that what's in the Epstein files is a lot worse than that, whether it's, videos, whether it's, email evidence, whether it's data, that sort of thing, then you can understand why they're starting to freak out even more over where Donald Trump's political standing is, because they're already looking up and seeing, okay, we're looking at getting killed in the midterms. And now you add Epstein into the equation.
Right.
And so what the messaging that has been said to me, and that it sort of, there was a moment, I guess, last month, and Cliff, you and I have talked about this, when Attorney General Pam Bondi testified in front of the Senate. She was asked specifically by Senator Whitehouse, do these lewd photographs exist? Have you seen them? And instead of saying no, she did.
A great point.
And that caused a lot of alarm bells. The other thing that has been told, apparently, to members of Congress is that when we think of the Epstein files, it's not like there's just like one copy of this photo or that flight log or whatever it is. There's several copies of this stuff that apparently exists in several different government agencies, which explains why, if you're Attorney General Pam Bondi and you think, okay, I'm going to have these files erased. Well, maybe you can erase or destroy what is in the Justice Department or FBI, but what if there are copies that exist over at the CIA or other government agencies? And what if there are whistleblowers or people who know what's in this stuff, and the moment you say, oh, this doesn't exist, well, all of a sudden now...
Then it's tough to redact it when it exists in multiple agencies, and if we know Epstein's background, and there's been plenty of things floated, obviously, about connections to the Mossad, connections to the KGB. When you start adding up that kind of stuff, and again, we don't have the exact proof of it, but there's a lot of smoke there, and now there's Republicans afraid. What if other governments have that same proof? What if that's why Donald Trump, from Helsinki to hell, is always bowing down to Vladimir Putin?
And so the practical effect of all of this is that you have Republicans who are very nervous. There is obviously... there's this discharge petition that is out there. Every Democrat and 4 House Republicans have signed on to it. Tom Massey, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace. There have been incredible efforts by the White House, I'm told, by Speaker Johnson to try to peel away one of those Republicans so that even once Adelita Grijalva from Arizona gets sworn in and she becomes the 218th, if you can lower that to 217, you block the Epstein files. Well, those efforts to try to peel off a Republican have failed. And so what's happening now is there's every expectation in the Republican caucus, at least on the House side, that once the government shutdown is over, Adelita Grijalva gets sworn in, she signs the Epstein, the discharge petition, and then within 7 legislative days, you have this vote. Republicans are saying there will now be at least 120 Republican lawmakers who will join all the Democrats in voting for the release of the Epstein files, in part because with Republicans not being certain what's in the files, if there is this horrific stuff out there, they are looking at their own reelection and need to find some way to create some distance from themselves to Donald Trump. And anybody, the Republican thinking goes,
sort of like Marcy Taylor Greene's been doing, almost like she'd seen this or had some hint of it.
and the thinking goes that any Republican who is viewed as having protected Donald Trump, who's on the record, say, in a vote not to release the files, and then those files come out anyway, if you are seen as having protected Donald Trump, then your political career is over, because you've already got, Democrats are energized. Independents have already moved over to the Democrats. As we've seen, the economy sucks. The Republicans are in deep election trouble to begin with. And so there's a panic that has set in among the Republicans in the House. And it's causing them, and a lot of rumors flying back and forth. And look, I don't know I don't know what FBI and Department of Justice back channels have said to members of Congress. I was not part of this, but just the fear that Republicans have about what may be in his files is something to behold now.
It is so delightful, isn't it?
Yes.
Wow, that was a whole lot. I've been sharing that we're on live with other places. I am paying every bit of attention one could to this, because it's like, I mean, again, there's a lot of things that could blow him up. Obviously, already his name, being out there, his not being on the ballot, whatever other reasons. I mean, they got smashed Tuesday. We're going to talk about that. Maybe it's a good time to transition over and bring in Dean Abdallah, a very smart radio host who will join us.
And while we bring in Dean Clip, there's one other aspect to this, which I always find interesting, and that is there are apparently other media types who are aware of sort of the speculation, the rumblings, the fear in the House. However, there is now, of course, because of the environment that we're in with Donald Trump, there is an incentive by mainstream media organizations to not go out on a limb, to be the last to report what may be in the Epstein files, to be the last to report on Michael Wolff's accusations about what's in the Epstein files and the photographs he saw. So, even though at all the cocktail parties and everything, there's people like, oh yeah, have you heard what's in the Epstein files? You're not going to get it in mainstream media.
Dean's drinking cocktail
this right now until they're forced to talk about it. Dean,
how the hell are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Good to see both of you.
It's great to see you, man. I'm so glad you could join us today for what has turned out to be a pretty fun week, I would say. We start off with David, who shared information he picked up from some folks in Washington. He still does that kind of thing. I'm just a lazy analyst out here in the heartland.
David is reporting. That's pretty impressive.
How about that?
David does
everything. I know that. I read it and let people get mad at me. That's all.
David's he's legit, man. He's not some goofball like I am. And DOJ, it seems, has told a couple of Republican members of the House, you better brace for impact, because the pictures in there are the quote, I believe, was much worse than anything that's been reported. And Michael Wolff has reported some pretty bad shit, if we're going to be honest.
Really?
Yes.
There's stuff in the Epstein that connects to Trump directly?
Yes. Yep. That Republicans in the Congress, the Republicans in the House have been warned. I don't know if you remember, Dean, but remember when Pam Bondi testified in front of the Senate last month, and she was asked specifically by Senator Whitehouse, there are these public accusations about photographs of Donald Trump with teenage naked girls sitting on his lap. Have you seen those? Does the FBI have them? And Bondi refused to say. Right. Well, that caused some panic among Republicans that thought, wait a second, if this stuff didn't exist, wouldn't Pam Bondi just say, hey, this doesn't exist, this is absurd? No. Well, now the theory since then has been, well, what is Pam Bondi trying? She's trying to protect herself in case, in case there's a new administration and she's charged with perjury, whatever. Well, but now there's this sort of rumor mill that has taken over Republicans in Congress that, hey, never mind what Michael Wolff has said and what Pam Bondi was asked, the stuff that is in these Epstein files is worse than that, and you guys should be prepared, which is causing a lot of Republicans to say that's why there's going to be more than 100 Republicans. Once there finally is a vote on the releasing Epstein files, it will be a stampede, that there'll be more than 100 Republicans to protect themselves who are going to say, I'm going to be on record as having one of the Epstein files released. I don't want to be on record as having protected Donald Trump.
I like this very much. I'm glad I joined your show. This makes all of this. Look, Pam Bondi has been protecting Donald Trump she was the AG of Florida. I wrote about this from 2011, 2019.
Yep.
In Florida, the state where Jeffrey Epstein was running a child sex ring, And just so it's clear, he had his criminal where he pled guilty in 2008, 2009. That was over. But Bonnie's own DOJ said that when he left, got out of prison, that little time in prison, he returned to his old lifestyle of abusing women. So he was abusing children and trafficking women while she is AG. And just so it's clear for everyone, because as I wrote about, she made going after child predators one of her top priorities, zero tolerance. She gladly and very publicly prosecuted others for sex rings, but never, ever even investigated Jeffrey Epstein. And why Democrats don't ask her, why didn't you investigate Jeffrey Epstein when he was in the state when you were the top law enforcement officer is beyond me. I don't get why they don't simply let her on the record answer it. And I know that the oversight for the Senate is her job there. She's not being confirmed anymore. Her job in the DOJ. But somebody has to have the courage to ask something out of that scope. Just ask the question. I used to be a trial lawyer. So just ask the question. That's important. Ask the question.
That's what I mean. Dina was trying to tell everybody, and now I'm realizing we didn't even do that when we introduced you, because you almost need no introduction. But Dina Abdallah here, who is a progressive radio host on Sirius Satellite, who is, and you can give people the exact deets on that, but of course, who is a comedian, who is a lawyer. Like, is there anything your parents sort of inspired for you to do that you didn't do? Because it seems like you really sort of took care of everything, man.
They wanted me to run away to the circus when I was a child, but I refused to. they kept like,
you went to law school instead, right?
Elephants. I'm like, really? I think you want to get rid of me. No, look, once I became a lawyer, it gave me the flexibility to try to do other things, because I kept saying to them, I don't know if I want to be a lawyer. They're like, just get your law degree. And then you can go. And they were right. And neither were lawyers. Neither had a college degree. They both had high school degrees, but they understood in America that it opened doors to have a graduate degree. Today, I still think it does today, but a little less so than 25 years ago. So I'm glad I got a law degree. They pushed me to do that. So now I can talk radio and write jokes and write Substack articles. It's so much fun.
And you are an astute observer of politics. And on that point, Dean, one of the things that I heard in the conversations with people in D.C. about the panic amongst Republicans is a couple of them pointed out, look, Donald Trump's at 37%. He's not at, 48 to 50%. If Donald Trump was as strong as he was, say, a year ago when he won election, then you can envision a scenario where if something is in the Epstein files, Donald Trump could say, oh, that's just AI, and he would still be able to keep...
Fake news. Yeah.
He'd still be able to keep Republicans with him. But when Republicans are already looking at a tsunami because the economy sucks, Donald Trump's low approval rating, the results of the election, Donald Trump is in an extremely weak position. And as a result, Republicans are trying to figure out, okay, how do we inoculate ourselves from him, not only the Epstein files, but on the economy?
I mean, to that point, because you touched on something bigger, is Trump becoming a lame duck? Not in the traditional ways, usually after the midterm. But now, when his approval ratings are where they are, and on inflation and the economy is 33, 34%, 2/3 of Americans in polls over the weekend say America's on the wrong track. That's primarily economic. And what's Trump's answer? He's on with Brett Baier last night on Fox News, and they asked him a question from a Trump supporter. Says prices are up. He goes, no, they're way down. So it's denied.
I thought he was too busy dancing at the Great Gatsby party while accepting 25-karat gold gifts from Tim Apple, if you will, while he was busy building a ballroom with whatever it is, hundreds of millions of dollars, and not feeding kids. Could you be more? First of all, could you be more of a dick? I'm just going to put that out there. But second, could you honestly show more of a contrast to people in who you are versus who normal humans are?
And at the same time, SNAP benefits have stopped. They're going to maybe trickle and pay 50% of it. Head Start, which is not getting a lot of press, some of them, depending on their fiscal year, they're closing down as well. You've got the ACA subsidies going through the roof, what it would cost people because there are no subsidies going through the roof, making it unaffordable. And you have hundreds of thousands of federal workers not getting paid, some of them being forced to work, like TSA officials I've talked to, TSA online union guys who literally, guys, are actually getting side jobs. They work a full shift at TSA to keep us safe, then take a shift on Uber or Home Depot or Amazon, and there's nothing wrong with that. But after working a full day, that's not what they want to do. It's the only way they can pay their mortgage and put.
Well, it's horrible for them, but it's also dangerous, right? I mean, if you're TSA, you're trying to stop threats, and if you're exhausted, yeah, I mean, it's horrible to workers, and it is unsafe, for America. But again, Trump's never cared about our national security. I mean, obviously, I don't want to give anybody any ideas out there, but I kind of feel like they've already figured it out themselves. The guy running HHS, he's not really that bright when it comes to the whole preventing pandemics thing. And when it comes to the FAA, yeah, like we're gonna have to cancel flights next week because we don't have enough people. And I mean, we can just go on in the various ways. If people wanted to harm us, they could harm us very badly, you know. And of course, the FBI is busy redacting Trump's name from stuff that's going to come out anyhow, and helping throw out innocent families, rip kids out of cars, and throw them out of the country. While there's probably somebody like from the old, movie Airplane, a terrorist walking in right next to them while they're harassing some old lady, and there's where we are.
It is where we are, and it's not sustainable where he is because his own supporters are suffering. Look at the election results across the board in the three big races, but also in Pennsylvania, the retention judge vote. You got Georgia special election.
Yep.
It was kind of remarkable to see what happened there. And affordability was a touchstone in all three big races. We saw New Jersey, Virginia, and New York City, and standing up to Trump. That was a theme. It wasn't like degrees of progressiveness. It really was, things are too unaffordable. You can't afford it. The Republicans control everything. We're going to make your life better. Finally, Democrats are fighting for the working class. Affordability to me is another way of saying I'm going to fight for the working class. That's what our party. We don't have an identity crisis. That's the party that we are.
Yes.
It's about time we get beyond the corporate Democrats who want to inject other bullshit. We are the party that fights for people, for the vulnerable communities, for the marginalized communities, for the working class, the working poor, and lean into that. It's a winner because you're going to help people's lives. Nothing more. You want to get people off the couch, change their lives for the better.
Yep. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Dean, related to that, I mean, we had, I think it was Joe who must have said, Joe Walsh, a couple of weeks ago, who said that, he would have advised Democrats against the government shutdown, that keep the focus entirely on the Trump economy, don't get into the distraction of the government shutdown. Given the results from election night, would it make sense politically, in your estimation, for Democrats to try to find some way now to end the government shutdown, even if it's just a Republican promise to have a vote on the Affordable Care Act, tax credits, and et cetera, would it make sense now to say, okay, let's put the focus entirely back on the economy? We've already sort of proven our point about the government shutdown.
I talked to Congresswoman Becca Balint earlier today from Vermont, who's great. She just did a bunch of town halls, and she shared with me everyone, including federal workers, so they have a lot up there, are saying, hold the line. Wow. Do not give in. That's what so I'm repeating what she's saying. My own little calculation, it's hard to say. I see the pain of the union workers, the federal workers who can't pay their bills. Now we're going to have 10% reduction in flights. That's going to impact more people. The delays at airports are getting worse. So you have that, and it's going to have an impact on our economy, our GDP. Right now, the stock market, this is not breaking news, there's a bubble. I don't know how.
Oh, God, it's frightening. What's going to happen there?
Leak out. We're beginning to see the bubble start to leak. And I don't know how deep it goes, but this is a house of cards economy. That's why people are really concerned. So look, I'm torn because I want people to get their SNAP benefits. I don't want Head Start to close down. I want federal employees to get their pay. But at the same time, if you're going to have 3 to 4 million people lose their health insurance, look, Democrats have won the messaging. Everybody knows now the ACA subsidies were cut by Republicans. Before this, they didn't know that. We did, but they didn't know it. Everyone knows that now. Democrats are fighting the good fight. I think they're in a hard position, just being objective, to cave without a commitment on the subsidies right now. So I think they've got to stand the line. Even if there's a point where it's too painful. I'm just telling you from what I heard from Representative Balint today, and she's very honest about what she hears from people.
No, I mean, what you're saying, though, it's obvious because what they're using against us, as all people that take hostages do, is that we have humanity and we don't want innocent people to be hurt in any way. But you do have to look also at the bigger picture here of who's hurt if we have no democracy in the future. If we have that's everything. That's the ball game. And, I think about, for me, and I know that this can't be done now, but I felt like way back when some of our demands should have included, there are no people who are going to be allowed with masks, without identification on the streets. National Guard, the posse comitatus, in fact, is real. And no, you're not sending the National Guard into cities. I felt like there should have even been some other demands, but I get it. It's very difficult. We have to figure out where it is we draw that line because we don't want people to lose their benefits. And again, Trump is breaking the law. He, by law, has to give those SNAP benefits. A judge has certified he has to do it, and they're going to do it, but they're slow walking it as much as they can to hurt as many people as they can. So, everything you're saying is right. It's just we only have to choose between, we have to think what the greatest good is for the most people, because people are going to be harmed. Because I'm sorry, and just going to, again, cursing's allowed on here. You don't have to do it, Dean, but we're dealing with evil motherfuckers, because I don't know how else to say what somebody is who wants to starve 20 million children. Okay? That's Stalin shit. I mean, you're evil. And
Look for on the right, the level of cruelty that they visit upon other communities, minority communities, it brings a level of joy to their base. Not all, but a lot of them. And for some of them, their lives haven't worked out well. And I'm not being judgmental. I'm saying you look at the core base of Trump supporters, white men with a high school degree or less, or socioeconomically, they're struggling. But they get some level of joy seeing suffering to others, which is horrible. As Democrats, I can speak for me, when I see government helping people in need, I feel good. That's why I'm a Democrat. To me, being a Democrat means caring about people that I've not met and will never meet. But I think we have policies to help them. That's what brings
universal values, not just people you know.
I'm sorry?
I said universal values, not just people you know.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not that Republicans don't care about anyone. They're just, their orbit of care is teeny. It's their family and their community. It's not like they're uncaring. They just don't care about that many people, and they get joy in the suffering of others. It's unbelievable to see this kind of mindset. I don't know what level of MAG is that. I'm trying to be as fair, responsible as possible. I'm generally not responsible, but I'm being responsible for you guys.
I know. I read some of your messages. I like how irresponsible they are, because they're a lot like mine. Sometimes we just get pissed and we say shit and rip all of them. And I'm sorry, it's hard not to do that if you're a human being and you see some of these things.
Well, for all of us of a certain age, remember a time when Republicans used to be extremely disciplined in terms of their messaging. Dean, you were talking about Donald Trump saying, "Oh no, there's no issue with grocery prices." I mean, the messaging, the way they keep undercutting each other, whether it's on that, whether it's on the filibuster, and Donald Trump acknowledged that the Republicans own this. The Republican can end the filibuster right now and the government shut down. And then the other part about the messaging is there's Speaker Johnson, who's constantly undercut by Donald Trump, and his message about it's the Democrats who are to blame for the government shutdown. He keeps undercutting his own message by refusing to swear in Adelita Grijalva.
Yeah, but he's Christian, as he says, so it's okay, David.
Well, and it adds to the perception that the only reason Mike Johnson wants to keep the government shut down is to keep Congress out of session so that Democrats can't get this vote on the Epstein files. And so the messaging for the Republicans has been all over the place. And for once, it feels like Democrats have been disciplined and focused squarely on healthcare and helping people. And that has resonated.
I agree. And there's been the view of Hakeem Jeffries has moved up a little from listeners to my show who were very, very frustrated with him in the past. Chuck Schumer is irredeemable. So that's that.
You're in the right place to share that, because if there's a day that I'm not going off on Chuck Schumer's leadership, it's a day that doesn't end in Y.
Right.
So
you can't save him. You just have to primary him or he'll retire. That's it. Hakeem Jeffries.
Get Chris Murphy in there.
He's showing a little fight. Democrats are staying on message. And I also think the campaigns that we just went through, they define what our party's about more than Hakeem Jeffries having a press conference in the basement of the caucus bill or having a caucus meeting. It's these guys went out there. All three candidates, affordability. That was it. That defines us. And that in 2026, that will likely be the organic message. Who knows what's going to happen a year from now? Well, and Trump's response is one, to lie, and second, to call for voting reform over and over, which means
voting reform. Yeah.
Breaking, right. So they want, he knows, and authoritarian experts have warned, and Ruth Ben talked to just yesterday, that this is a playbook that all autocrats or aspiring tyrants do. They go more lawless. They get more dangerous.
Yeah.
He will become more dangerous and desperate from now to next November as he sees the polls where they are. If they were way up, it would be different. He is demented, but certain things break through. He has moments of lucidity. He sees the polls. It's not good for him and not good for them at the party.
I mean, go.
Dean, what do you think Mamdani does in New York? And what does Donald Trump do to him? I mean, does Donald Trump, in your estimation, follow through and cut off funds and money and billions of dollars for New York City because Mamdani won?
Can I also, before you go with that, I want to say I've been friends with Dean for a really long time, and we've been buddies. So what we got here on this show right now, we got two Jews and a Palestinian, okay? And that's not the beginning of a joke, although it could be.
It could be.
Let's bury this shit right here, right? Like, I want us to bury it because, like, I want to just be honest. There was some things initially about Mamdani that upset me. A post-October 7th message that seemed to kind of blame all sides and some things like that. I feel like as the campaign went on, he showed a lot of who he truly is. He showed a lot. He reached out to the Jewish community. He tried to, and I want to be part of like bringing everyone together here and saying, this charismatic, talented, young, the economic, as David said, like just being so bold in what he put out there economically for the Overton window. I don't believe he's anti-Semitic. I think we all have some insensitivities, and he probably said some things that maybe he would wish he could take back. But help sort of like, let's all just help with the whole thing. Because I've seen your picture of him. I've seen you say great things about him. I don't know him, but he seems like a good dude. I want him to be my buddy, is what I'm saying to you. I don't want any of this crap.
I don't know him well. I know him from a few Muslim Democratic events over the years. He was on my show once. We chatted on the phone once or twice in the past. I'll tell you this. I watched him a year and a half ago talk in front of like 50 Muslim American Democrats at a meeting. And I was like, this guy's amazing. Like, it was like that. It was like watching A Star is Born. Like, he was already an assemblyman. But other speakers went up and they were all young Muslim Democrats and council people and stuff, and they were good. And he was at a different level. I'm like, this is pretty remarkable.
Right.
Look, his focus is affordability. People want to talk about the Middle East. Look, if your views on Israel are different than his, it's going to upset you, and vice versa. As a Palestinian American, there are Democrats I support who are more hawkish on Israel and less. They've grown to be more compassionate towards Palestinians. At least we get that for most of them. So things evolve over time.
They do.
His campaign, I think now as mayor of New York City, you're going to see him reach out even more to the Jewish community, to every minority community.
I think so.
Young Jews supported him in huge numbers. You know what's really remarkable? People are debating, is it a mandate? I don't know how you define a mandate. He got over 1 million votes. It's the most since any candidate for mayor since 1969.
I saw that. It was amazing. And the turnout was the biggest since 61.
Right. And here's the remarkable. For people under 44, of all backgrounds, all races, he won 70% of the vote. That's right, 70% of people under 44 years of age. That's a multinational, and he won black voters overall by 15 points. He won Latinos by 7 points. He won white people by 1 point. This is remarkable. The only demographic he didn't do well were Jewish Americans who were older. Younger ones love him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And David and I may be older. I don't know where you put us in our 50s,
No,
but
it's a generational change. That's all.
But to me, I don't even need someone to have the exact same position as me. I'm an adult. We're going to disagree on some things. All I want from all of my politicians are that Hamas are a bunch of ghouls that murder innocent people, and that Bibi Netanyahu is a war criminal who murders innocent people. And if you can, and I think that's a pretty fair suspect of that. And if people can agree with me on that, we can figure out the other stuff. I understand there are people who strongly believe that Israel should be a Jewish state versus whether it should not. And I think there can be disagreements there, and we can all still, be together. It's just on those areas. If I hear anybody apologizing for Hamas or I hear anybody apologizing for Netanyahu, then you're out of my orbit.
I think also,
and let me just say something on a slightly serious note, which I don't enjoy doing, but here.
Get back to the jokes right afterwards. It's okay.
As a Muslim American, I've done 2.5 decades of interfaith work with my good friend. We do a comedy show. He's Jewish. My buddy Scott Blakeman at colleges all over. I've been on Muslim Jewish interfaith councils all over. If Zoran did anything that was actually anti-Jewish, I'd be the first to stand up. Yeah. And our community would be the first to stand up and denounce it. So anything, and he's never done anything anti-Jewish. If you want to say critical of Israel, anti-Israel, yeah, there's some of that. But if it's really about the Jews, and he's never said anything. If he did, I never would have supported him. Our community never would have supported him. So that's the commitment I make. Like, if there was anything ever anti-Jewish by him, we're going to speak out. I'm going to speak out on my show. I'm going to write articles about it. I don't think that ever happens, but if it does, I'm.
And I'll say quickly before I know David wants to jump in, but I just need to say this. I've known you for a while, and that's why I wanted you on, and I wanted to ask that question because you are someone of character, and I've seen you call out anti-Semitism, and I know you would do it, and that's why you saying that makes me believe it. I
also think that I think because of events for the last few years, I feel like Mamdani, it's really not about him. I think it's more a reflection of where the state of mind is for a lot of Jewish Americans who rightfully feel freaked out by the events of the last couple of years and are terrified by it. But to your point, I think when Mandani says something like globalize the intifada, I think it means something very different to him than it means to a lot of Jewish Americans who immediately think, oh my God, does that mean you want Hamas breaking into my door and shooting me? No, of course that's not what it means. Globalizing the intifada to a lot of people simply means justice, globalizing justice and resistance
and freedom and
voice and freedom. And so I think there's this disconnect. And in many ways, I actually think that Mandani's election is actually going to help Jewish New Yorkers a lot more than if it had been Cuomo, simply because they will realize what a reasonable person, what a nice guy he is. And they will
also because Cuomo's kind of an asshole.
Well, and they will see that it's actually that he is, a friend of the Jewish people, and that you can have disagreements about the Middle East, but it doesn't really matter when the guy is the mayor of New York. His job is to make your life healthier, happier, more enriching as a New Yorker. And I think he'll do that. And maybe in some way, then, that bridges whatever gap exists right now because of how a lot of Jewish Americans are feeling about themselves and their own insecurities.
That's it. By the way, he never said globalized intifada. He was asked would he denounce that. And he evolved from saying, look, I'm not going to denounce, I'm not going to word police, to saying, look, I spoke to a lot of Jewish New Yorkers, and I would recommend people don't use it. It's a very painful word. So he evolved in just a few months from winning the primary.
That is what I saw. And
don't forget, he's 34. He just turned 34.
Right.
Remember when we were 34? It was just a couple of years ago, right? That was a while ago.
I drank enough. I'm not sure I remember it. So, let's just skip over that.
We were still learning. You're learning who you are as a person. You're also learning about things that you know as you get older, which are definitely tropes that might be anti-Semitic or anti-Muslim or racist. You don't even know everything. And so in time, give him the grace to learn and evolve. And we're adults. We know when someone's being anti-Semitic. We know when they're being anti-Muslim or anti-Black or anti-gay. So let's be adults, not go crazy with everything. And you look at the person in the big picture. I understand. I have so many Jewish friends after October 7th. The pain, the intergenerational trauma came to the top.
Yeah.
It was very horrifically painful. I understood that. Some of them, the most liberal people in the world. And then as time went on, what they saw in Gaza made them return to their roots of being a progressive Jew and go, this is unacceptable. I can't have it in my name. So I think we're back to a reset where that was, but I understand Jews have suffered through time. I mean, my Jewish friends are my most compassionate, empathetic friends. And I love them. And, and I will stand with them all the time. Now, we happen to probably agree on the Middle East a lot. If we didn't, maybe a little harder. But we are both minority faiths. We both know what it's like to be demonized for our faith, to have commercials run against us, to have our place of worship defaced by bigots, have people in our community threatened for our faith. We should be allies. If it wasn't for the Middle East policies, we would all be allies in general.
Absolutely right.
That's right.
Get along. There's no theological reason we can't be buddies. We're minority faiths in America.
Well, theologically, we're brothers. I mean,
right.
I mean, we're so.
We go back there. We're related. Yeah, I mean, and that's why I wanted you on, because you're such a good voice for this, Dean. And honestly, I came from a place of, hearing things initially about mom dying. This is 6-9 months ago. And then I listened to the guy. I looked at the guy and saw what he was doing. And as time went on, as he evolved, I evolved too and said, you know what? A lot of this is bullshit that people are saying about him. And if he made some mistakes and said some things that he didn't mean to say initially, as you just said, 34-year-old guy probably hangs out in a certain community. Did I not make those mistakes as a young man? I said things that I would take back in a second as a younger man. So I got to that place where I was like, this guy seems like he wants to reach out to everybody. Seems like a good guy. And so that's why one of the reasons I want you here for a variety of reasons. You're funny and you've got ideas on other things too. But I felt like, getting past this so we can all get behind these folks, because that's what we need. We can't sort of like, all right, we're good now. Foot needs to stay on the pedal. We need to keep pushing forward bad stuff. As you said, I hope Hakeem Jeffries shows some positives, but every time I've let him convince me he's going to be in a positive direction, he does something that drives me nuts. Like the messaging, as you said, affordability stretches out to it's not even just working class, it's the middle class now. There's upper middle class suburbanites who can't afford childcare and to send their kids to college. And to point out, as every story has, we're the good guys in this. We're trying to fix this. A couple weirdo billionaires hiding in back rooms with Doge and things like that, working with Donald Trump, are harming all of us. They're taking money out of all of our pockets. They're taking all of our rights away. It's them. They're the bad guys.
And it's why, if you see the breakdown of the age of people 18 to 29 who voted, 75% voted for Zoran. it was over 80% of women and like 68% of men. And like all those young guys, we're never going to get them back. They came back because they can't afford to live in New York City. Things are too expensive. And here's a guy, every rally, remember Trump rallies? Lock her up, build a wall. At Zoran rallies, they were finishing the sentence about free buses for childcare. We're going to provide childcare for people. We're going to freeze the rent. These are things that can change people's lives. And Democrats, that's where Democrats should take the lesson. It's not the same policy prescription. Where you live, you might not be able to freeze the rent. It's about what's going to actually affect my life, my family's life, and lean into that where we can. And the corporate donors are not going to fund you. Well, too bad. You got to get your money from the people. Big money in politics.
Anger overcomes money. We just saw that.
Yeah.
How much was spent against money? I mean, when you see elections of this kind of movement, I go back to because I'm a semi-old guy. I'm 53. I remember 2006 when we won the House and threw them the hell out. And Republicans spent a lot of money, and we overcame it because people were pissed at George W. Bush, at Iraq, at his attacks on Social Security, and all these kinds of things. Katrina. I mean, let's remember again, money is not. There are people that beat people that spend 4, 5, 6 times as much money because you don't need the money to turn people out. If they're so pissed off, they're going to turn out. They'll crawl through burning, broken glass to get there to vote. And that's where we are. So stop listening to your billionaire donors. If you're look at people like Chris Murphy in the Senate. Look at people like Jasmine Crockett in the House and Swalwell. And I mean, there are Democrats who get this. And we need more and more to keep getting it, and just stop with the listening to leadership's tepid, we could do some subsidies or some tax credits. No, we need systemic change here. We need to protect democracy. We need an FDR moment. And I'm going to keep saying that. I know that's my thing, but until I'm blue in the face.
Jamie Raskin was with Zoran on election night and talking about he's cutting the same cloth as FDR. Jamie talking about Zoran. I was watching the video of that. An FDR Democrat would now be called, he was almost called, I think he probably was called a socialist and probably a communist then too.
Yeah.
And he embraced class warfare. He didn't care about it. It gave him wealth. But people want the corporate.
I invite your hatred, is what he said about the corporate chieftains. I would love to see one of our Democrats say that about the big tech CEOs. I invite your hatred.
That's kind of interesting. But when you think about the corporate Democrats, to me, their biggest thing is they're about the status quo because their donors gave them money in this system that has worked for them. So it's not, they're happy to give subsidies back that we had, but they don't want to talk about healthcare for all or Medicare for all or bringing down the age of Medicare eligibility. Start there from 65 to 55 to 50, something like that. What Bernie's talked about. We're told it's the best country in the world. Polling doesn't back that up as Americans. We don't view it anymore as that. And so much of our struggle is day in and day out.
Yeah.
We watch the rich get richer. You see the stock market breaking records, but your life has not changed for the better. More billionaires made every year, and we're struggling. And you get the bullshit of everything's going to be fine. You offer nothing. Democrats, you have to offer transformative change. That's what people want.
Right. Look at what happened. I'll say quickly, everyone should look at what just happened in New Mexico. Okay. New Mexico is one of the poorest states in the union for a variety of reasons. And they just passed a universal free childcare bill that rivals Finland, for fuck's sake. They just passed, universal, I believe it's family and medical leave on top of it. They just passed numerous in New Mexico. We can do this in every state in this country, and we can do it federally. Family and medical leave is like that, and universal background checks are the only two things I've ever seen for 90%. Okay? Everybody wants them.
So, and the Republicans are reading those same polls. I mean, I just heard Chip Roy, I think it was on the Steve Bannon podcast the other day, was talking about how Republicans need to stand for economic populism and go after the billionaires in health insurance and the pharmaceutical companies. So, okay, if the Republicans are also recognizing that there's a for-profit motive in drug manufacturing and healthcare that has gone way too far, and Democrats have believed that for a long time, certainly with the next president or whatever, there's common ground to get this stuff done if Democrats are willing to go big and say, okay, we're going to ignore the billionaires that also give to Democrats, and we're going to try to bring in some Republicans who are willing to spurn their billionaires, and there's stuff we can get passed.
Well, I would love to see campaign finance reform. We would. I don't know if this corrupt Supreme Court would strike it down, But at least if we could get
probably, but let's be aspirational about replacing them with a legit Supreme Court, not a bunch of Opus Dei freaks who stole a couple seats. Sorry, my own.
and had in 2020, we just talked about it on my show. Was it Monday or last week? That Democrats in 2028, you're going to know if they're sincere about change, if they're committing to at least Supreme Court reform. I think you have to add seats if they don't want to commit that far. But at least you can't be sincere about wanting to effectuate change on issues that matter to us if you're not going to take on the Supreme Court. Like, we want to win the House.
Yep.
We want to win the Senate. We want to win control of the Supreme Court. It's now a political institution, just like the House or the Senate.
Yep.
So we got to go after them.
And it's not just one kind of reform. I would say, again, if we're talking about changing institutions, talking about FDR stuff, add term limits, add age limits. I'm sorry, again, in Ohio here, one of the good things we actually have is the Supreme Court. You hit 75, you can't, you can't. So I think you can run up to 75. But again, then you're going to ensure that you don't have people over 80 on the Supreme Court. I think there should be an upper age limit. I think there should be term limits of 18 years. And I think we have not increased the size of the Supreme Court. I will bring this up also forever, since I think 1860 something, and the country has grown 13 freaking times bigger. So they reject over 99% of cases. They can't even do their jobs. Like, I don't even think 13 justices does it. We need 17 or 21. We need enough justices that a couple of Supreme Courts can work at the same time on various cases, and we can do things.
Super court. That's what Elie Mystal talks about. Super court.
There you go.
Huge court, and you have
the court of justice.
And so, but you got to make it a court again. It's not. When I went to law school, it was a court. It's not a court now. All you have to do is see the GOP position and the hot button issue, and they're going to reverse engineer from a legal point of view to get that. We know it. They're going to gut the Voting Rights Act. The tariffs are the only thing. They might rein Trump in. And it's really an academic legal discussion. It seems what they're having in the oral argument, less political, because they're like, yeah, this is not, doesn't give them, for whatever reason, they seem to have some problems with that. So they might rein him in on tariffs, but everything else he wants to do, they
just let him. Yeah, Emma Lewis just had a great point on there. Of course, there needs to be an enforceable ethics regime, or whatever you like to call it, group of ethics rules that are put. I mean, it's the fact that the Supreme Court does not have an code. I guess what I'm looking for. It's not have an ethics code is absurd. I mean,
I agree 100%. Every other judge has to adhere to a certain code of ethics that's written down and codified, and not the Supreme Court's like whatever. It's the highest court in the land. These 9 people can make law, strike down law, and we don't know who's funding them. And you had, Harlan Crow giving Clarence Thomas everything he wanted, and
it was wonderful $500,000 vacation. I mean, man, it was like the Love Boat the way it looked. I started to hear the music. I mean, he was cruising on that boat. Clarence was all happy. His wife was checking out all the new cults that were on the ship. But okay, I'll stop.
Dean, we know you got to go on a little bit, but before you do, I got to ask you this question. What is it that makes you optimistic these days? And what is it that keeps you up at night fearful?
I assume you mean in politics or in life?
Well, you take it wherever
you'd like to put it, dude.
I was talking about politics, but if you want to shed some light on the Dino Badala private life, that's fine.
If it's another worry, like whether the Mets can rebuild for next year or something, you can share that.
I'm a Giant fan. A lot of pain.
I'm a Giant fan too. We suck, dude. What the hell?
Horrible. The Jets there's not even professional football in New York right now.
No, the Jets honestly should just be, if we had relegation like Europe in soccer, the Jets should just be relegated to AAA.
I agree. And they should bring a college team up. That would be better. Look, the things that were keeping me up and probably still do is, from a political point of view, is Donald Trump checking the boxes of the wannabe tyrant and reading too much history growing up, and even to this day. I'm like, people don't get this. He's going page by page in the aspiring fascist playbook, and you got to get this. This is the biggest threat we have. What's helping me feel good was the No Kings protest was bigger this time. People going to the street, winning these elections on Tuesday. I don't want it to be like we don't fight as hard as we have to. We have to even more. But certainly lifted my spirits. Listeners to my show calling in, people are excited. They're feeling good. So I think to me, my concerns were losing this democratic republic, being the generation that lost to fascism after the greatest generation went and fought fascism in Germany, and we lost it here. I think we're going to beat it, but it's going to be a hard work. And what gives me joy is these election victories where Democrats, people came out, they saw it. Even they're not all Democrats who voted with Democrats.
Oh, no, there are a lot of independents and some Republicans. Wait, so do you think some people have this idea, and I'll ask you this is the last thing I'll ask you, and then we want to make sure everybody knows everywhere to find you on Substack, radio, everywhere.
Okay.
But so I've had some other folks I've spoken to on our side who have said, in fact, I was on a little on a live stream last night with Malcolm Nance, and people who were he was talking about having something in the spring in Philadelphia that feels a lot like a constitutional convention, but it'd be something like CPAC, where we get together and we start having a conversation now because we're influential enough, all of us together with independent media, with our various outlets, that we start putting together a platform so that we don't have to wait for Chuck Schumer's version, but of here's what we expect. And no, not through the moon, whatever, but I mean, outside the Overton window, legit stuff that we should have, that we all know that every other Western country, when I'm talking about family and medical leave, and I'm talking about, paid, things like that. And I'm talking about all these regulations of guns, and, and part of that, of course, is what we do with the Supreme Court. You'd think that's something we could all do, we could organize, and do you think we should do it? How about that?
I think it's a great idea. I think that the more organization we do on the people side, the better. Waiting for the elected officials to lead for Democrats is a waste of time. We've learned there are about 25 Democrats who are great fighters, right, in the House and the Senate. The problem is there's 250 Democrats in the House and the Senate. So we've got to get the ones who are fighters, try to invite them. But I think the people got to say, here's what we're about. The GOP leaders fear their base. Democratic leaders tolerate us at best, ignore us, and a few like us, I think. And that's the difference. Like, we've got to get it. I'm not saying I want them to fear us. I'd like them to listen to us more on issues. And if we articulate our vision and say, here's what we want you to fight for, our own Project 2025, that actually helps people in a good way.
Yep.
That would be great. I mean, I think it's a great idea.
Listen, I'd rather they not fear us, but, first of all, never fear us physically, because we're not goons, right? If they fear, I don't want them to have to fear us politically. I'd rather they collaborate, but if that's the way it has to go, then that's the way it has to go. Because again, that pent-up anger, it's out there. And I can see three sort of futures. One of where we embrace an FDR type ethic and live up to what everyone needs in terms of democratic reforms and economic reforms combined. A second one that sees that energy going over to the fascist side, because we don't do anything. We give piecemeal to people, and they get even angrier as their lives spiral out of control. And the third one that may be as bad as the second one is violence, quite frankly, from people who give up on the system. And I honestly think that maybe there's other possibilities. I'm not saying, but those are three that I see from being a student of history. Embrace the FDR. If that needs to come from us, let's get out there, show we're all united, show we're on the same side here, and show that we can do this thing, and we can go, and we can do it, and we don't have to cheat at golf like Donald Trump, or have piss cotton candy hair, as Penn Jillette called it. Or, sorry, I have to get in some insults because I hate him. But in any case, Dean Obeidallah, I can say my good friend for a whole lot of years now, and it's, I could add more stuff to his resume besides a lawyer, comedian, exceptional writer, great commentator. What time is, I often catch your show on places like YouTube. What time is your show on live for folks who want to listen?
On Sirius XM, it's on live 6 to 9 p.m., weeknights, 5 nights a week. And if they have Sirius XM, they can listen on the app whenever they want. And yeah, I post 1 or 2 interviews a day from the show on the Dean Obeidallah Show page on YouTube. And my Substack is the Dean's Report, which I hope people will subscribe because I'm very needy. It's all free.
Just needy. Go subscribe to Dean. You're crazy if you don't.
Please do. And it's completely free. And, I put in my interviews, and I write at least a few articles a week. I like writing very much. So I enjoy writing a few articles. And I try to do 1 or 2 interviews a week. I just can't do as many on Substack Live because my show is 3 hours of content.
Well, I mean, Jesus, just that you do that and you're still doing other stuff. When I've guest hosted a few times for some of the old pros, I think Leslie Marshall back in the day and some of the other folks, 3 hours of radio, that's a different beast, man. That is how you end up like talking to yourself in the corner, I would just start dribbling on myself probably and pass out. Well, thank you for everything you do, Dean. And
Dean, I was just saying, Dean, it's great to see you. Great to be on with you. Longtime fan and admirer, and you keep up the great work.
Thank you. Both you too as well. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Oh, absolutely, buddy.
For my show. I got to
Oh,
my radio.
Okay, that's right. You work hard. You got to go do that. We're gonna sit here and say nice things about you, and
Don't badmouth me when I'm gone.
and there he goes, Dean Obadella, and that is why I love him. He is positive. He is fun. You know,
and the hardest working man or woman in broadcasting. I mean, that's crazy. That's just remarkable.
And I really did want, honestly, like I was very, we're joking, we're having fun because that's we're required to. All Blue Amp media contracts, including my own, say we must have a good time. So it's required. But in all seriousness, I did want Dion for that reason because we forged this friendship. I think we both were writing for the Daily Beast at the time, or somewhere like that. Maybe MSNBC.com. It was a decade plus ago, and it just was perfect because I see someone here saying buy Cliff a podcasting mic, and I know I've gotten a lot of stuff about this, but when I do it through my when I have a mic, a regular professional mic that I can plug into my computer, we're great. I can't get the sound on the phone here right. I tried it without the earbuds, nope, with them. So any of you tech geniuses out there have any ideas? I want it to sound better. This is how we have to do the Substack ones. That's all I can say. But I'll say, in case I want to say about Dean, he's the one because he always comes in good faith. I think I come in good faith. And, any fears I had about Mamdani were born out of things that I truly feared. I wasn't playing a political angle. I read some things. I saw some things that after we were all a little traumatized by October 7th, bothered me. But he addressed them as time went on. He showed who he was. And Dean is somebody who is, I really trust him on these issues. And I just really wanted to have this conversation because Mamdani is mayor now. Let's bring everybody together behind him and support what he's doing.
Here. And by the way, our friend Ellie Leonard Cliff was just on and said that we need to have you apply for a tech grant or one of our tech grants or something like that.
For one of our own tech grants, maybe but again, like, it's not, I can afford it. I don't know how somebody needs to explain to me. I have an iPhone 13. If I don't have something plugged in, it sounds like shit. If I do, apparently, I don't know if I'm too loud is what I've heard from people, but I've been hearing that since I was about 4. Or just tell me how to do it, folks. Tell me how to fix it. I'll pay for it.
We'll figure it out. So I have a question for you, Cliff, and this has been a really, important week for so many reasons, all the reasons we've talked about. Put on your political strategist hat on. Democrats, obviously.
Oh, hold on. Lawrence is telling me time to upgrade. I assume you mean phone, so maybe it's the phone. All right, I will go in and get the new damn phone, Lawrence.
As long as he's not saying upgrade the co-host, but that's a whole other issue. So,
Lawrence is probably just going to start yelling at me soon.
So, Cliff, we have this great night, Tuesday night for Democrats and progressives, and a lot of people recognize, okay, the damage that's been done. Democrats are galvanized. Republicans are freaking out. It looks like Republicans could be in for a really bad couple of months as the Epstein files emerge. We're heading into a midterm election year. Democrats have the headwinds. From a political strategy perspective, what do Democrats do with this at this moment, over the next couple of weeks, over the next couple of months? Because as we know, things have a way of changing sometimes within a year.
You mean, how do we keep this momentum going?
Yep.
So, again, I've talked often about how, from a public relations perspective, spectacle is what gets attention. And, if you, first of all, there's all of us. Reach out to independent media. And I'm not just saying that it's self-serving, because we will amplify your message unless your message is shit. But if your Democrats are talking about things, we've already had Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist on. We've had Fred Wellman, who's running for a swing seat in Congress. We've had Greg Landsman, who's running for the House. We will amplify it. But we need the traveling around the country by AOC and Bernie. Fantastic. It got attention. They were talking about the right things. When there have been big moments where somebody has stood up and called out Republicans in a way that was unexpected, which Jasmine Crockett seems to do every day. But if you step out from the ordinary, Chris Murphy, when he said some things about funding the government so that they can come hunt me down and chase me around, we need people that are willing to, first of all, speak, as we've just pointed out, like Mamdani, like Spanberger, like Shell, authentically, and they will get more attention. Travel around the country. Local news needs more content. They will cover you. If you are in local markets, go to key local markets. Our friend Sherry Jacobus came up with an idea ages ago that I don't understand how it hasn't been enacted. Daily press conferences right outside Congress. I would do it even more now that they're not there and point out a countdown, point out what they're not doing and bigger ideas. Put out a platform of the type we're talking about that has huge ideas out there that go past what people expect. Fox News will freak the fuck out. Good. And then we'll explain to people why these aren't communists or socialists or Islamo-fascist, Jewish, gay, whatever they want to call it, and why these are things that will help most people. The key is that aggressiveness. If you want the media to be covering what you're doing, you got to be doing stuff. And that means not if it's a press conference in front of the Capitol, good. If it's people traveling around the country talking about this, good. If it's a policy proposal way out of what people expected, good. When Elizabeth Warren brought up a 2 or 3% wealth tax on every dollar over $50 million that billionaires have, it got attention. The momentum needs to keep going with that, and you can surround that with, at the very least, monthly, if not more often, huge protests and marches. I think we should have a regular press unit outside the Supreme Court to point out how full of shit they are regularly, whether they're in session or not, and so people understand that we don't need a new amendment for the Second Amendment or a new thing for Citizens United. We just need to go back to what the Constitution actually says, and not what these dipshits from Open Stay say who aren't paying attention to the Constitution. Set up regular means of communicating and then step outside of what's normal. Trump has his great Gatsby party. We should have our own Dickensian party, a Charles Dickens party, and point out what's really going on out there. Be creative, be regular in terms of your content, and that you're out there speaking to people around the country. Like a whole plan needs to be put together where they are constantly hearing from us that our independent media covers, and where there's enough spectacle. We used to have a Trump chicken we brought around here dressed like that. It made on the front page of the Cincinnati Enquirer. Help with stuff like that. It will make the newspapers. I hope that answers the question.
You answered the question. It was brilliant. I agree with everything. The only thing I would add is to a lot of people who are out there who are a little bit nervous because you look up and see there's the mainstream media, and the media is like, because I'm Donnie One, Democrats are going to lose because they're going to freak out people in the middle. Pay no attention. Ignore the pundit class, the mainstream media pundit class that sits back in Washington that is totally out of touch with the affordability issues that so many Americans face. This is a time, I agree, to go bold, to be big, to stand up for big progressive plans. And anybody in the mainstream media who's telling you, oh no, that's bad, that's the way that that elections are won by the center, you're going to freak out the center. Well, you know what? The center just joined Democrats in a huge way on Tuesday night because Democrats are speaking to their needs as well.
Yeah, and I'll just say this. These guys who are saying, and I know you've got to leave in a minute, as a dedicated dad, which I respect the hell out of, Democrats obviously, if we are pushing sort of the milquetoast light proposals that come from our leadership, whatever, if we allow that to continue, if we do that, I promise you, not only will we get no media coverage, but people will not look at us as an agent of change. They'll look at us as the status quo, and they will go to something crazy on the other side. Yep. Come out with those, as you're pointing out, those proposals. And corporate media may say, oh, no, it's not moderate. I got to tell you something. Liberals are angry right now. Leftists are angry right now. Moderates are angry right now. Conservatives are angry right now. These guys represent none of them. And by showing strength and confidence in who you are and what we stand for, and by being authentic as all of those candidates we just talked about were, like Spanberger doing more digital ads, Mikey Sherrill dealing with local influencers in New Jersey. We do all of that. People will hear who we are and what we stand for. They'll get our personalities, and we can effectively communicate with them the ways that we're going to make their lives better, and we will win big. We just need to stay out there, stay aggressive, stay creative, and not let the agents of fear, oh my God, especially former Democratic consultants. Wonderful stuff. Most of you had the most charismatic speakers in the history of the world. I'm really impressed that you figured out how Obama can win and Bill Clinton can win. fuck off. Okay, you're done. Your time is done. If you don't understand the moment we're in right now, you're a 20th century consultant. Stay in the 20th century. Okay, watch your cable TV. Watch your episodes of Golden Girls. You know, go back and eat your TV dinner, or whatever, and leave us the fuck alone. Those in the 21st century who get what needs to be done now.
Well said.
Was I obnoxious enough for the ending of this thing, David?
I love that. I would start summarizing by saying, park your boring face, you establishment Democrats, in the Smithsonian once it finally opens.
Exactly. If Trump allows it, you can put your faces even in the Trump section if you'd like, because you're really helping him. Hey, guys, thank you so much for watching. This was a great episode. I love these when there's great chemistry. We all have a great time. Which is a guaranteed thing with David because he's amazing. And we get big guests like Dean. So thank you. We are going to sign off from Amped Up. And we'll be back again as the sun sets slowly in the west, my friends. We bid you a fond farewell. Take care.